Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Monstrosities, a vlog of Tokusatsu. I'm your host, Matt Burkett, and this is a very special live stream. We are going to be interviewing two really cool people. You might have heard of them, Matt Parmley and Kyle Byrd of the Kaiju Transmissions podcast. We will bring them in just a minute, but I would just like to say hello to Joey Sullivan. What is up, my friend? Toku Punk, what up, what up? RJ and Samson R. Shaw and Kaiju Kim. Everyone go subscribe to Kaiju Kim's channel. She's awesome. But let's go back to our guest. We got Matt. What's up, my friend?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me on. Anytime.
And we got Kyle, too. I mean, I'm mostly here for Matt, Kyle. I'm just letting you know.
I don't blame you.
What's up, guys? How you doing tonight?
Good. I'm great.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Doing well. It's good to be here.
Well, I know we've been trying to get you guys on here for a while, so I was just telling you before the pre-show, thank you very much for coming here. But, you know, over here on the YouTubes, sometimes, you know, YouTube watchers don't go listening to the podcast, and the podcasts don't go watching the YouTubers, all that jazz. If you guys were to give an elevator pitch of what Kaiju Transmissions is, what would it be?
Byrd, I'm gonna let you handle that one.
We are, yes, a podcast dedicated to kaiju, giant monsters, and Japanese fantasy films. But I think we really want we like to expand outside of just, you know, the Godzillas, the Gamras. You know, we for example, right now it's October. We always do Japanese horror films. So I don't know. I think when Matt here wanted to do a podcast, I said, like, I'll do it, but let's do more than just, you know, the same movies everyone's talking about, because we're going to talk about those, but we also want to have a more varied list of subjects. And, you know, we've done everything from, you know, Harryhausen movies to Tremors, you know, and I just figure if someone, you know, who really likes our show is like, oh, well, I don't care what these guys have to say about, you know, Tremors or whatever. It's like, okay, that's cool. You know, next week we'll be talking about probably some rubber suit Japanese giant monster thing. So,
well, that's all that matters, Kyle. That and Bondi toy, that you know.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, but doing that has also kind of gotten us to discover some really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like earlier in the month, we did two Hong Kong horror films, The Cat and The Seventh Curse, and we did those because they had Japanese effects crews. So you had, you know, Keizo Murase, Shinji Higuchi, cool. Guys like that working in Hong Kong and making monsters for these Hong Kong films. And it's like,
what year was that roughly for both those films?
The Cat was 1990. Seventh Curse was like 80. Geez, I don't know. 80. Yeah. I want to say 86, but I could be completely wrong.
It's
but
like, I love that era of Tokusatsu, you know, late 80s throughout the 90s. Like, that's...
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, so finding cool little things like that and, you know, reasons to talk about them. There's not much we won't talk about, you know, and like I said, you know, if people are like, oh, that's not kaiju enough, that's not Tokusatsu enough, whatever. I mean, you know, that's cool. You know, tune in next week, because chances are we're going to be talking about something that'll be more, I guess, traditionally kaiju or whatever. So,
I mean, I think that's I know that's one of the things I greatly appreciate about, you know, you two and the product that you put out is that you try to go deeper than just like the production history stuff, you know. Kyle, there was an interview with you on Toho Kingdom where you were talking about kind of like the general how kaiju podcasts typically go. It's like, oh yeah, you go through the Godzilla movies and it's like, you know, one person who might be the expert, the other person hasn't seen the movies, and that's fun at times. But you guys really do try to go deeper and try to get the production history stuff. And I mean, your involvement with Kaiju Masterclass only further exemplifies the fact that you guys have a passion for this. And I guess like this might be a weird question, but what makes you passionate about that? Is it being a fan, like that particular aspect in particular?
I know for me, one of the things that I like learning about how these movies came to be. And for all intents and purposes, Tokusatsu is either dying or changing in a way that doesn't reflect what it used to be, right? Because everything is more driven by CG and things. And we're all getting older, and the people that made these films they're getting up in years. And like we lost Sonny Chiba this year. He started Japan Action Club, which was providing a lot of the stuntmen for tons of different Sentai productions. And so learning about their stories, the way that they hone their craft, the reasons they maybe made certain story decisions, how they wrote the music for some of the composers. Like, I just find all that stuff really fascinating. Sometimes more fascinating maybe than the movie that we're reviewing at times. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, I look at it as if I kind of look at, if I'm a fan, what are some things that I would like to know? And I'm kind of how Matt is. Like, I like to know about the productions, the people that made them, and so little of that stuff is available in English. And and even a lot of the stuff that is available in English, sometimes that information is really hard to find. So if I can find some information that I don't see everywhere, and relay that on a podcast, or our really good buddy and kind of like unofficial like guest host Kevin Derendorf,
Who,
if I find
he's in the chat tonight.
Oh, yeah, there he is. He's that's him saying 1986. But like, if I can find some like link or some weird picture or something, I can send that to him. His fiance Amanda, who's also working with us at Kaiju Masterclass. Like, I can just bounce something to them, and have it translated, or something like that. Finding obscure. I guess my thing is what I'm trying to say is finding obscure information bites that I would like to know, and having an excuse to broadcast that to people. I guess is what I like.
No, that's awesome. And hold on, I got to do this every time he's brought up. We got to do this, okay? Everybody, go buy Kaiju for Hipsters. Fantastic book made by our buddy.
That book is one of the reasons that we have a podcast, because there's so many movies that nobody ever talks about that eventually we'll get through. So thanks.
Yeah, your watch list will increase like by 20, and you'll have enough. Your watch list will be long enough to last you the rest of your life after you get that book. So
Kevin's an amazing resource, and I'm glad you guys utilize him as much as you do, because he's really wonderful. But in speaking of the people that are involved with your podcast, you guys have like interviewed dozens of people, and I really do got to give you guys credit, because that is something, just on an editorial note, and maybe it's not true, maybe it's just from my bias. I don't see a lot of people doing that, either on the YouTube side of things or necessarily on the podcasting side of things. It might happen on occasion, but you guys do it like on the regular. And you have all these. I was just listening to the Steve Wang interview right before this one, because I'm a huge live.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
No, you guys got some great information. I love the RoboCop debunked story that you guys were able to get. But and this might be a little just like general shallow thing, but like, can you guys just share some of your favorite moments from interviews, or maybe a favorite interview or something like that?
One of mine is actually the Sonny Chiba interview that we did.
Yours takes the cake. I wasn't involved with that one, but yeah, yours takes the cake.
I had gone to a convention to interview him, and I want to pause for a minute. One of the cool things about our show is, one, we do have a bunch of people that kind of rotate through as like guest hosts. So we have like our buddy Tom, we have Kevin, and a host of others, and Trev. But the other thing is we've been really fortunate that people have helped us in some ways. So like we've been able to make connections at conventions with the people representing the guests who actually give us the opportunity to do some of the interviews. And I think because of that help, we've been able to then say, hey, we've actually done interviews with other people. So when we reach out to, say, Steve Wang, I can tell him I've interviewed other people. And he's like, okay, so this is a legit thing. But we wouldn't be there and we wouldn't have that opportunity if other people weren't so helpful. So like, I want to be really clear that our show isn't what it is without the help of other people in the fandom. And I can think of like Jim Sarnella or even like Tim Bean. And I mean, there's a host of people that have given us those kinds of opportunities initially. And then, of course, like now it's Steve Reifel and Ed Gottschalewski, and now we're working with them for Kaiju Masterclass. So, you know, a lot of our, for lack of a better term, like success or just the ability to get interviews comes from the fact that people have given us a shot. And because of that, I was able to interview Sonny Chiba. So the convention we were going to at the last minute, they had to move from a convention center into an abandoned Macy's inside of a mall. And it was the weirdest thing because you walk through like this check-in and you still see Macy's signs, not everywhere, but like you can tell that they had just moved some of that stuff out.
Right.
The interview takes place in the back of a changing room, basically. It was just like one of the most surreal kind of bizarre things because like I'm interviewing somebody who is so influential with like how he started Japan Action Club, how he basically trained and brought up a whole host of stuntmen. And by the way, like you go from Sonny Chiba to Kenji Oba directly to Tom Kitagawa. Tom Kitagawa is the Godzilla suit actor in the Millennium films, or many of the Millennium films. Kenji Oba was in a bunch of Sentai stuff, but also Space Sheriff Gavan is probably what he's maybe best known for. But interviewing him in this abandoned changing room, and then he tells his pitch for the movie G.I. Samurai. So G.I. Samurai is a really awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. It's on Tubi. It's insane. The dub is insane. If you watch that, there's so many like just it's mind blowing. But he gives his pitch for the American version that he wanted to actually have made, which is essentially the U.S. military fighting against American Indians, and it's a really cool thing. So like that's probably my favorite memory. And then if I had a close second, we actually did capture the final panel for Haruo Nakajima, who was the first Godzilla suit actor before he passed.
Nice.
So we went to a convention that he attended, and we were able to record his last panel, and that's actually one of the podcast episodes that we put out.
It sounds like garbage.
It does. It really does. Because of the audio setup, it's not great, but I will tell you, like, that's one of the things that I think I treasure just because of who he was and what he meant.
Yeah, you guys have it documented, so it's in existence there. Real quick, before you answer, I just want to tell the chat, if you guys have any questions for these two guys about Kaiju Transmissions, Kaiju Masterclass, which we'll get to in a little bit here, please, for the love of Godzilla, ask them, because I'm looking at the chat now. You guys are, you know how these streams go. We interact with our guests and stuff, and these guys are full of knowledge and have a lot of good stories. So just wanted to let the chat know that. And Mabuse Cast says G.I. Samurai is great. So I'm going to add one to the.
It's not wrong.
So sorry, Kyle. What is your favorite moment?
Well, I can't beat Sonny Chiba pitching a movie to me in the back of an abandoned Macy's dressing room. But one that I got to do in person was Mizuo Yoshida, who was Godzilla in GMK, and he was half of Legion in Gamera 2.
I gotta ask, was he the ass end?
No.
Oh, damn. Okay.
He was the other
end. You asked that question, right? Byrd is.
I did. And he said the biggest challenge was having to hold his farts because the other guy was. Because the other guy's face was basically like shoved an inch from his butt.
It was the human centipede before the human centipede.
There you go.
Right. So, but yeah, that was a great experience. Then, I mean, just some of the interviews we've had have been really, really good. I mean, the Steve Wang one you mentioned is one of my all-time favorites.
One of the best interviews we did, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Linda Haynes from Latitude Zero and Linda Miller from King Kong Escapes. Those were both really good. Linda Haynes was, she gave a very candid interview. but yeah, I like just kind of, and one thing I want to kind of do more is kind of reach out to people that I don't think are really being talked to a lot. Like we just had Dwayne Poole from the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla series.
That's right.
And it's like so much of that show is like everyone knows it, but so much of like the history of it or the production or whatever is like undocumented. So it's like, yeah, why not like actually find some of these people and set the record straight? Like for years, no one really knew why Godzilla's roar was basically a dude roaring into a microphone. And the prevailing theory was that it was a licensing thing with Toho, but it was just the Hanna-Barbera guys wanted a wide range. They wanted Godzilla to be able to emote or have more expressions in his vocalizations, and so they got a human actor to do it. So I mean, some of that stuff is like those kind of myths are like accepted into fandom lore, and then but when you actually look at it and say like, okay, well, where did that information come from? And it's like, you can't find any official source. You can't find any official like from the horse's mouth like, oh yeah, the roar was a licensing thing. And it's like, usually that's a red flag that something isn't true, right? So again, it's just trying to go to the source with some of this stuff. And I mean, no one's talked to that guy about Godzilla in 40 years, so, and it's like, why not? I nearly everyone else from that show is dead. So, it's, yeah, if someone talked to this person about this, I'm not even a big fan of that show really, but it's good to kind of let these people tell their stories.
Totally. And that's something, again, I'm going to kiss your guys' butts a little bit, but I fully mean it. It's, you guys are really doing some amazing work by, again, debunking those things. By our fandom is oftentimes ruled by assumption, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And just like guesses and stuff. So when that kind of solid information comes out, it's always really a wonderful thing. I was going to move over to Kaiju Masterclass because that was like a perfect segue, but we got our first question here from RJ Godzilla 81, who's a regular here. Good to see you, RJ. Where did your love for genre pictures start? Not necessarily giant monsters. Did your love start with fantasy, science fiction, horror, or animation, or was it something else? For the both of you.
It's a great question. Matt, you can
I'll go first. So I mean,
take the lead there.
I have kind of probably a different answer because my love of genre film actually did start with Godzilla, believe it or not. In my family growing up, we didn't watch movies all the time. I was involved in like extracurricular stuff at school and going to like big blockbuster movies. So I didn't start watching more genre film until I got much older. But my love of dinosaurs started it. Love dinosaurs, love things like Dino Riders growing up. Then was introduced to Godzilla. I watched Godzilla 1985, the American cut of The Return of Godzilla. And after that, I was immediately hooked, and I started seeking out every giant monster movie that I could. And then TNT Monster Vision, and then that bled into like horror. So like USA, I don't know what they call the station anymore, but like seeing stuff in syndication, Friday the 13th, seeing all that kind of stuff. So
USA is still called USA, man.
Is it? I thought they changed the name. I was thinking about sci-fi probably. But yeah, I mean that's kind of how it started for me. It actually starts with Godzilla, but then I've branched out quite a bit from there.
That's awesome.
I mean, Godzilla was the big one, but I mean, so like Matt, it was like I was obsessed with dinosaurs, and I, at 3-4 years old, I could say dinosaur names like Parasaurolophus, and so my mom got me the Imperial. This is aging me. I'm Imperial Godzilla figure and the King Kong figure. She's like, oh, he likes dinosaurs here. And they were neat, I played with them, but I knew I had known Godzilla was like this pop culture thing. There were movies. I never really seeked them out. And then I start catching glimpses of them on TV, or and then like in second grade, one of my classmates was like really into Godzilla, and then that's when I rented Godzilla versus Gigan and Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and that was it for for me. I never outgrew that moment. But I mean, but as far as this genre stuff in general, like most kids, I was into superheroes, like again, aging myself, but the 89 Batman was a big deal for me. Batman Returns was a big deal for me. When I was in like kindergarten, watching the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and then around the same time I got into Godzilla, that's also when Jurassic Park came out, and so those two things combined just got me into science fiction. I remember even telling I still remember as a kid, like I was talking to my grandpa and I was like, what kind of movie is Godzilla in Jurassic Park? And he was like, well, that would be science fiction. And, shortly after we got the Sci-Fi Channel on our cable package. And then, that led to Star Wars and so on and so forth. And with horror, I'd watch, stuff here and there, Universal monster movies, or like every now and then a Nightmare on Elm Street or something on TV. But when I discovered the Evil Dead movies in middle school, so that's like around 90, 97, 98, that was it for me. From there forward, it was, I just started every week, renting 2, 3, 4 horror movies.
What's your favorite Evil Dead movie?
I flip-flop between the first and second. If you were to ask me today, I would say the second one. But, in a week, I could say part one,
That's awesome. That's really awesome. And again, chat. Oh, by the way, everybody say hi to Vapor Dreams. What up, Vapor Dreams?
Hi, Vapor Dreams.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Again, chat, ask these guys questions. We will gladly fit those in. But rewinding just a minute, when we were talking about the preservation of like good information and stuff, this of course segues perfectly into Kaiju Masterclass. And we talk about it a lot on this particular channel, but I'm just going to pretend my audience has no idea what the heck it is. Can you guys pitch to us what Kaiju Masterclass is, and if perhaps there's another event coming up soon or something?
I'll try to give a more succinct and comprehensible elevator pitch for Kaiju Masterclass. So that
it was great.
So that is an online virtual convention that we are a part of, and Mr. Burkett here joins us as an official team member this year as well. But that was something that one day I just got like a message from Steve Rifle, who I'd met and he'd been on the podcast, but I was like, why is Steve Rifle messaging me? And he was like, hey, would you like to be a part of this thing? And I was like, well, duh. I've been reading Steve's books and stuff since I was like, 10 years old. So of course I'll
amazing.
Yeah, of course I'll be involved. But the idea is pretty much, so it's a virtual convention. There were tons of those last year, still tons of them, because of COVID and everything. And just a way to do something, and for people to enjoy when times are particularly difficult. But the idea is very similar to kind of what we were talking about. We want to get the people that worked on these movies, television series, so on and so forth, and talk to them, ask them questions that, maybe they haven't been asked. Ask them about, maybe obscure projects they were involved in that, they don't get to talk about much. And also getting, I guess, genre historians and stuff like, Ed Godziszewski or John LeMay or, guys like that on to kind of take us deeper into how, these films were made, or in some cases not made. And that's really the focus, and I think this, I don't know, this fandom kind of has, there's so many different, okay, you got the film history guys, you got the toy guys, you got the art guys, like there's a lot of different hobbies within this like extremely niche thing. So
Totally.
I think some people kind of looked at, what we were doing as, oh, well, they're not including, stuff about toys or cosplay or whatever, and kind of thought like, oh, they must be, frowning on it. And it's like, no, that stuff's perfectly cool. It's just that this is, it is a niche within a niche within a niche, the Kaiju Masterclass. But for the people that do care about that stuff, I think there's a lot to offer there.
I'm going to cut you off, Byrd, because that's the thing. Everybody cares about it. Everybody who makes YouTube videos, everybody who writes the articles, everyone always refers to the same 5 books, usually the ones written by Steve and Ed. So the fact that, all this information is being presented, in whether it be on the podcast or on the convention, this is information that people refer to whether they like it or not, but it is strangely one of the things that is like the least celebrated in the fandom. It is the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
So sorry for the rant there, but I was just like,
no, it's okay. But yeah, we don't, I don't know. Yeah, it's not, we don't look down on the people that are into those other things.
Plus Godzilla.
Yeah, Matt here is next to what'd you spend, like $7,000 or something?
Yeah, I almost had to sell my firstborn for that. So I mean, it's you can't see it, and my bar is a mess over here. But I have in between my bottles of like scotch and bourbon and stuff, I have Godzilla toys. Is kind of what I have set up, and you see the posters, and I mean, I was really heavy into collecting for a couple. I mean, it was probably, well, one, Trend Masters back in like the late 90s, right?
Yeah.
Ton of Godzilla merchandise started coming out then, and then I started probably 5 or 6 years ago spending a lot of money on collecting. And the thing for me is like my love of this stuff is driven by my love of the movies. And like the crazy thing now, especially with merchandise, is Toho is like pumping out the Godzilla license.
Oh my God,
like,
I know.
Like Mondo's putting out something every week. You have these really high level like Spiral Studios putting out stuff. You have the Super 7 license.
There's Godzilla Monopoly now. I mean,
yeah,
designer clothes that I don't know who in the world would ever wear, but it's
well, and here's the other thing. I think the cool thing about now is that because all those things are happening, you're getting like Arrow is picking up, hey, you may like, if you like Godzilla, maybe you'll check out this really awesome Gamera box set, which by the way, like that box set is probably the best box set that I own. Like
Daimajin and Yokai sets, like Arrow's been killing it.
Yeah, Warning from Space. I mean, we're getting a lot of releases of movies, Bloodthirsty trilogy, stuff that like was not previously accessible unless you went to the gray market. So one of the cool things about like Legendary, Godzilla, all this merch being coming out is that it's actually opened the door for other genre films to come out as well.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with collecting either, but you're right though, Kyle. There's just so much, tribes within this.
People try to pit you against this clique or that clique, but it's like, I don't care about any of that.
I'm sorry, you just described the fandom perfectly.
I mean, I go to G-Fest every year, and I spend way too much money at the dealer tables. By the way, like I'm planning to take my son this year. This is gonna be his first G-Fest. He would have gone, prior to COVID, like that was gonna be his first. And I'm so excited for him to see the dealer's room because we walk in there, like literal kid in the candy shop. It's overwhelming how much stuff they have, and the stuff that you see in that area is stuff you honestly you can't get anywhere else unless you're in Japan. So like I love that stuff, and I hope people hear that when they listen to this. Because for us, Kaiju Masterclass is really just, we're about preserving the film history. Like that's our goal. But I still love my like my gigantic Godzilla burning Rick, X plus Godzilla 90. It's one of those things I think is kind of a nonsensical conversation to have, because we still love that stuff. We just happen to be focusing in a different area.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, there's, I'm sure there's people that are doing awesome stuff with those hobbies, but Kaiju Masterclass is about the creative process of the people that brought us this stuff, and that's what we're celebrating.
Well, we got Kaiju Masterclass 2 coming up in less than 2 weeks here.
Jeez.
Yeah, right. What without major spoilers, what can people look forward to? And on the same note, what are you guys most looking forward to yourselves?
There are some spoilers, because there's some stuff that just there's some announcements coming, but oh geez. We have Kazuki Omori, who directed Biollante and King Ghidorah and wrote a bunch of the Heisei stuff. We have Reijiro Kuroku, who composed the music for Godzilla 85. It's his first ever English language interview, which I think is amazing. Yeah, it's amazing that we were able to get him. Matt and I will be interviewing Tom Kitagawa, who played Godzilla. We mentioned that earlier. Tiffany Grant, the dub actress, she's done the Gamera trilogy. Of course, she's Asuka in Evangelion.
What's Evangelion? I've never heard of that before.
For me, I honestly, the thing I'm most looking forward to is people watching all these cool interviews and cool panels. I think there's 2 interviews I've been involved in so far. All the Japanese guests have been pre-recorded for the sake of convenience and time zones and stuff like that. And I think they're both really good. One of them, which is not announced yet, it's not public, is a guy who I think really kind of cleared a lot of air and set the record straight on a lot of things. So I'm just excited for other people to check it out. As a fan, I'm excited for the Kuroku interview because, I'll be honest, I love the music in Godzilla movies, but I am by no means like a music scholar or expert on the film scores. So, but with that being said, I've read about Ifukube a million times, so I'm curious to see what he has to say. And then me, Matt, John LeMay, and Kevin Derendorf will be doing a History of Gorgo panel.
Cool.
Yeah, LeMay, I mean, that guy digs up so much weird information. And
I don't know how
stuff.
he does it, dude. I'm convinced
I don't
he's like a
either.
warlock or something,
No, and
He's
he's right. He has a magazine, and he puts out like 100 books a year. I don't know what his deal is, but yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting stuff with the origins of that movie, particularly which a lot of people don't know. Originally, it was a Japanese co-production, and we're gonna have some cool pictures and stuff from that, and then yeah, so those are probably like my personal highlights. I'll let Matt tell us what he's.
Yeah, I mean, the Kitagawa talking to a Godzilla suit actor is something that I'm kind of always in awe of, just because growing up as kids, all of us thought it'd be cool to put the Godzilla suit on until you realize it weighs like 200 pounds and you can't film for more than 10 seconds and then you pass out. So it's.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, no way. Like actually talking to these guys, it sounds miserable.
Yeah, it really does.
Sounds terrible.
And, like, the fact that you have to move at a really fast pace, like whatever they're doing that looks slow in the movie, they're doing it super quick because of the way it's filmed to make it look realistic, or not realistic, but just believable on film. I'm really excited to hear the interview with Fuyuki Shinada, who basically
Yeah.
made a bunch of Heisei Godzilla era monster suits, and just kind of hear what his process was and him going through it. And then actually, we're the Linda Haynes interview. We've interviewed her on our podcast, but she did one of the best interviews that I think we've done, because it was just so, like, it was very raw, and the answers that she gave were just, I mean, the way that she talks about her career and like where she ended up after her career is just, it's really, really interesting, but also just really honest. And you don't always get that in these kinds of interviews. And so I'm really interested to hear her talk about that some more. And then, you know, like on top of that, like we're going to be talking to Jasper Sharp, who's one of the producers for Arrow. I'm just really interested to hear how he selects films, what the process is to get all the different extras, what you have to go through, what the studios are like to work with. Because like Toho, we know that Toho with Criterion, like they were really difficult to work with, but you go back and you look at Arrow's handling with Gamera, and they have so many extras for all those films. It's pretty incredible. Yeah. So I'm interested to hear about the differences between some of the different studios he's partnered with, and just kind of how that stuff has always, you know, panned out.
No, I think that's wonderful. Though I do got to be honest, I'm really disappointed that you guys rejected my "Does the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park 3 fit in the MonsterVerse" panel? Like, I was really pushing for that. Patrick Delvin, of all people, was behind that, but you guys just shot it down. I will never understand.
What Patrick didn't tell you was that he was the one that clicked reject. It wasn't us.
Exactly. No, I think it's going to be seriously cool stuff, and I hope everybody in the chat will go and check it out. By the way, say hi to John. John's here. Watched a few episodes of Kaiju Masterclass last night. As a matter of fact, this is what we need more of.
All right, good. Yeah, that's another thing. Another cool thing about virtual conventions is if you miss something, you just go onto YouTube and it's right there. You know, so yeah. I mean, last year we had Kaneko. We had Shinji Higuchi, who talked for like 3 hours.
Yeah,
you know, so. Crazy. And that stuff is just there until, I don't know, until YouTube just gets nuked or something. So
I think it's also really important to talk. Like, this is both our podcast and Kaiju Masterclass are their labors of love. Like, we're not incentivized to do this stuff.
Oh yeah,
we don't get paid a dime to do any of this.
We're spending money to make these things happen, and I say that because we care that much about our hobbies. We care much about the films and how they're, you know, preserving that film history. I hope people can appreciate that side of it, because like there's nothing in it for me. Nobody wants to look at my ugly mug taco day, but you might want to watch, you know, Tom Kitagawa talk about whatever happened to him in the Godzilla suit. So we know it's not about us. And again, I just want to reiterate, like, we love this stuff. That's why we're doing it. This is me when I'm 5, as now a 36-year-old adult man, like, this is me kind of living out something that I never thought would honestly happen. That we started our podcast, it was just me and Byrd, 2 idiots talking about monsters. We never thought in a million years that it would kind of become what it has. But again, I'm just like so thankful that we've been given those opportunities.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that's a big thing. You know, and hopefully, you know, whether it's our podcast or Kaiju Masterclass stuff, you know, hopefully that'll also be some kind of resource for someone, you know, further down the line that is, you know, writing a book or working on an article or whatever. But yeah, I mean, Matt and I started this, you know, I'd already been podcasting for a while when we started Kaiju Transmissions. But yeah, I mean, Matt and I, we just wanted to talk about Godzilla movies and kaiju, and you know, I guess the thing about a fandom is small and isolated as this is that it's really easy to make connections, you know, and right. I mean, that's why we're able to do interviews, you know. I think we have the tenacity now to hunt people down and be like, hey, you want to come talk to us? But, you know, originally, like, I don't know, our first couple interviews, like, were like accidents. Almost,
yeah, they really were.
You know,
like, I think back to that, like, we interviewed Taguchi, who directed a bunch of Ultraman stuff, and Byrd, what are the movies I'm blanking? Is it Gahara and a bunch
Gahara, yeah.
So but Jeff Horn, like who's somebody that, we talked to at G-Fest, was like, hey, we can make this happen. Let's do it. And so again, we've had a lot of help. Now that
I've known Jeff since before.
You were like 5 when you met him or something, right?
Yeah, I've known Jeff for ages, before I did any podcasts or anything like that. So yeah, it's just stuff just kind of fell into our lap. I mean, I just thought Kaiju Transmissions would be like, like my original podcast, my old podcast, If It Bleeds, We Can Kill It. It's like, oh, it's just a thing we do for fun, and if we're lucky, this episode will get 100 downloads or something. And we've now we're lucky enough to be doing all these other things, but yeah, the idea was just, it's going to be me and Matt talk about movies, and every now and then our friends would join us. And I mean, if tomorrow, if that's all it was, if someone said that's all it's going to be from now on, it's like, okay, that's all that I ever had. That's all that was part of that was the plan anyway.
Yeah. So if we never do another Kaiju Masterclass or, whatever, like, we're just going to keep doing our podcast, because that's what we like doing. It's really, again, it really is a labor of love. There was a question in the chat, actually, and I might have missed who said it, but it was, when can I join Kaiju Masterclass? So I'm just going to take a quick second and plug, and we can talk about how you join. So the website is kaijumasterclass.com. We currently have our list of guests. A schedule will be posted later on. As Byrd said, we do actually have another surprise in the works that we can't announce yet. But once the schedule is finalized, that'll get posted. You can also go to the Kaiju Masterclass YouTube page, and you'll see all the last year Kaiju Masterclass. The first one we did is already there. And then we will pre-schedule videos once we have the schedule uploaded. But it's November 5th, 6th, and 7th. Yeah, I think the first session's 8 p.m. Eastern, and then we have a whole bunch of stuff planned for Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, it starts Friday night, and then Saturday, Sunday, all day, basically. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, if you're familiar with like how Matt here does his live streams, there'll be like that thumbnail with the video URL. All that'll be on the YouTube page in advance, and throughout the weekend, just work your way through those. I'll probably be in the live chat a lot, telling people like, okay, thanks for checking this out. Now go here to check out this thing that's next. So yeah, just keep your eye on YouTube, and the website will have the schedule hopefully sooner than later. Yeah, and also, I mean, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and as soon as there's updates, announcements, you'll see it all there. So thank you for asking, though.
Doomzilla, which, by the way, Doomzilla is awesome. He's also another regular here. I'm happy that Kaiju Masterclass is coming back. Last year was the perfect way to celebrate all of those that is Godzilla during the worst time of the pandemic, and it's the perfect way to be united. So
thank you.
That was the aim the whole time. I think, like, there's no Kaiju Masterclass if there's no COVID. Like, it grew out of that, right? Because there was a void once COVID hit. And so I'm glad that, people can see it that way, because that was our intent. We were there to basically, hey, let's try to make this thing happen. And that was basically the genesis of it.
Yeah. And
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I mean, to harp on it again, it's a lot of work putting something like that together. And, I mean, Matt and I, we don't do it for any kind of notoriety or, I have no need or desire to be like fandom famous or whatever. I just want to
King of the Kaiju.
Yeah, I just want to be able to help bring the content that I like as a fan to other people.
Yeah. I mean, we have 12 listeners for our podcast, right? It's not like
yeah.
There's like 3,000 Godzilla fans that go to G-Fest every year, and maybe 12 of them listen to our podcast. Like, it's not I think we've always been pretty tongue-in-cheek about it. I'm just thankful that we feel like we can contribute something worthwhile that people will learn from.
Absolutely.
Because like now as an adult, when I watch these movies, I have so many questions about why they made specific decisions or how the movie came together. Like, who wrote that in the script and why did they think it was a good idea? There's just all that stuff that runs through your head. And so learning about it for me is like, honestly, I would tune in to Kaiju Masterclass, and I'm really looking forward to all the panels that Byrd and I aren't a part of, because those are things that I get to learn from. So
Totally. This is kind of off topic, and I should have probably asked you guys this when we were talking about the podcast, but
I agree. The Greasy Strangler is the best movie of all time.
oh my gosh.
Byrd, do you see this over here? Do you see the Greasy Strangler?
Porto or whatever that guy said.
Have you guys seen that?
I have, yeah.
Oh, I love you guys so much. I got to hang out with Sky Elabar a couple weekends ago in Vegas, who played Big Braden.
Yeah, that movie's great.
It was. I see. This is why I love you guys. I cannot believe that you. Yeah, that was amazing. Sorry, you caught me off guard with that one. That was fantastic. But I really love the fact that you were, you guys were talking about like the origins and like what it took to like get this podcast going. And I don't know if there's anyone in chat, but I know that we've had a lot of people, viewers here on the channel that like they love to do their own media. They're thinking about doing a YouTube channel, or maybe they want to write an article, or maybe they want to do a podcast. And I was just wondering if you guys had, any words of wisdom for those who do want to kind of, do their own podcast. Because, there's dozens of kaiju podcasts out there, dozens of tokusatsu podcasts, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try something. Do you guys have any advice for those people?
Yeah, I mean, I know from my experience, so we started our podcast in 2016, and I had no idea. Like, I knew that I wanted to do the show, but I had no idea how to get there. What Byrd and I did was, because he knew it, I leaned on him a lot to kind of make some of those, like, how do you get hosted on iTunes and those kinds of things. But like, we reached out to Kyle Yount from Kaiju Cast, which at that point, like, is, and probably still now, is like the most well-known Godzilla related podcast, right? We reached out to people who knew, and they gave us advice. Also, there are so many tutorials out there to like walk you through how you get set up now. I feel like there's a new Godzilla podcast popping up like once a week at this point. So if Byrd and myself, if we two idiots can make this happen, anybody else can.
Yeah, that's true.
I would say, one, like, go for it and do it. Two, have a very clear vision. I give Byrd a lot of credit for this, but like the vision for Kaiju Transmissions to be able to kind of go outside of Godzilla was really his idea. But we stuck with that vision because it was different from what other people at the time were doing. And I think that kind of got us a different audience. So have a very clear vision. And then, like, honestly, shoot your shot. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask them to interview. You would be surprised, because of social media, people actually do want to talk about the stuff they worked on, especially people that aren't working now. And like, they're kind of in the twilight of their career, twilight of their life. Like, they actually want to share some of those memories. So all they can say is no. Like, so we reach out to people all the time now to try to get new interviews and stuff. And like, the worst thing they can do is say no. So like, why not ask them anyway?
It's beautiful.
I also think, I don't know, I guess have realistic expectations. I mean, don't think you're going to make $1 million doing. I mean, it's very easy now to see people on, YouTube and TikTok and, all these giant podcasts and think, oh, well, that's what I want to do. But, I think do it because you like doing it. Like Matt and I have been doing this for years for free, and so do it. I think realize that this is a hobby, and those that actually can make a career and make a living off of it are like the minority. But yeah, do it because you love doing it. I mean, that's my biggest advice, is do it because you want to and you love doing it. That's my advice.
I know Matt and I know Byrd, you'll appreciate this, but like, also know that it's work. I mean, like, we do it because we love it, but it takes work. And if like Kaiju Masterclass behind the scenes, like, we meet once a week, we meet for an hour to an hour and a half. We have an ongoing conversation on the little Facebook Messenger. There are things that we have to get done to make this all happen. Know that editing, like Byrd does our editing for a podcast, but like, that's work. He has to listen and cut out every time that I say something stupid. I mean, it's like, that takes work. It takes some dedication. So know that it's going to take work, but like, if you're really passionate about it, I think you'll find that in the end it was worth it.
Yeah, and but yeah, like, know what kind of podcast you want to do. I mean, my old podcast, If It Bleeds We Can Kill It, was more of kind of like a free form discussion. Like, here's some topics, let's just talk about them. Kaiju Transmissions is a little more structured. We try to do as much research as we can before we dive into something. So yeah, I mean, find out, figure out if you want to be research driven, how much, you want to, I guess, get into those topics, or, if you just have a couple friends and you're like, oh, I know some guys we just want to chat about movies or comics or whatever. And it is more of like, okay, I just want to have a free form discussion that goes in wild directions, that's okay too. There's a lot of different things you can do. And, I mean, as far as more technical and, stuff or stuff like, hosting sites, stuff like that. I mean, like Matt said, there's hundreds of articles and books and guidelines for stuff like that. So, use Google as a resource. Matt and I, as far as hosting services, we're on Podbean, which, is pretty easy to work around. I record on my MacBook on GarageBand. But yeah, I mean, there's hundreds of resources out there, but, yeah, do it because you want to do it, and don't let anyone tell you it's a bad idea. Just do it.
Totally agree.
Don't rely, Matt Burkett, you'll understand this is like, algorithms are nonsense. They work in mysterious ways.
Yes.
I mean, do the best you can, but don't stress about them. It's
No, I'm sorry I keep on saying like that's beautiful, but I mean everything you guys are saying is honest to God truth, and the passion that you guys have brought to your podcast, to Kaiju Masterclass. No, you know what? Maybe you never made a dime, but you made a hell of a lot of stories, a hell of a lot of really cool life experiences out of that. And I just think that's just so wonderful to be able to have. You know what I mean? So. No, that's really cool. Is there anything that we can look forward to on the podcast front from you guys? Like what are the
yeah. Well, we have a whole bunch of stuff. We usually take, like, the holiday season, we usually kind of take a hiatus, and we have like episodes banked up that we'll kind of put out. Halloween, we have our last of our October episodes, which we're talking about Makoto Tezuka's Monster Heaven movies, which are yokai related films that are like super obscure. I mean, whenever we talk about stuff like that, I'm like, I know that. Look, if you want to see this, like, send me a message or something, because it's like one of the movies we're talking about isn't even on IMDb, for example.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. It's gonna take some work. It's recorded, but it's gonna take a lot of editing, and we're also gonna, for the first time, be utilizing the Kaiju Transmissions YouTube channel that has existed for many years. But in Burkett, you'll like this. Matt and I, our buddy who's worked with us on a lot of stuff, Chris Marty, his brother is an astrophysics student.
Oh.
And he came on. I got to give them credit, but because they came on with this big presentation breaking down the physics of Godzilla Singular Point.
Dude,
and
I'm there.
And so that'll be in podcast form. So it's all audio, but there are a few parts where it's very helpful to have the visual aid. So so some of the PowerPoint slides that they made will be available. The plan is to have those on our YouTube channel. So that part of the podcast can be like a video. But I still don't look.
Look, it's like the old guy in Singular Point. You're either with it or you're not. Just go with it. It's a lot easier.
It's one of those things where everyone's like, "Gosh, I wish that they would just like explain the physics more." And it's like after actually learning what it is, it's like, do you really wish they did that? I mean, yeah, Matt and I were like going through. We were like going through this presentation with. The podcast it'll basically be an audio version of like a PowerPoint presentation with the video to all the really relevant parts available. But so Matt and I were looking at this PowerPoint thing as they were talking for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, however long it was. And it was just like, what am I even looking at? And you'll hear us very often, like they'll be like, okay, do you have any questions? And I'll just be like,
no.
What is this? But yeah, I mean, some of it is actually pretty helpful, especially with orthogonal diagonalization, which is a real thing.
Yeah.
And
I can't pronounce that. I'm not going to try. So
having an understanding of what that actually is a little bit helpful. So the challenge is historically math is like my absolute worst subject. Like I never made it. I barely made it past like algebra 1. So I was able to get a grasp on orthogonal diagonalization. Yeah, I was able to get a grasp on that. So if I can kind of wrap my head around it, I feel like I have like an 80% understanding of it. Anyone should be able to, and it actually does kind of make a little bit more sense with some of the stuff going on and I guess plot wise. But that is all like real science. So it's not technobabble, it's jargon because it's real. So yeah, it's not technobabble. It actually, a lot of that is sound. But yeah, also what is it? String theory, all this stuff we kind of got into, and it was a trip.
I can't wait to hear that, dude. That's gonna be incredible. Slightly off topic, but I thought this was a great thing from Kevin. Pro tip: editing is hard. Find someone else's podcast to guest on, so they have to edit it.
Yes, yeah.
Kevin's on our show all the time, so
yeah, Kevin is basically. I mean, he's like a co-host practically at this point. So
I mean,
yeah. When he's on our podcast, it's like this. All we had to do is show up. It's different when it's like, okay, I got to research a bunch of stuff, then I got to edit stuff, and yeah. But yeah, Kevin, he just has to bring himself.
Exactly. Well, gents, we are hitting the hour mark here, and I think this would actually be the perfect time to draw everything to a close. But can you guys go ahead and plug your stuff? Where can we find you on social? Where can we find your stuff? I mean, we mentioned Podbean before, but I know that there's several other places where we can find Kaiju Transmissions. But plug away, please.
So we are on Twitter at KT_podcast. I think we're probably the most active on Facebook currently. It's just Kaiju Transmissions, probably the easiest way to find us. Also, kaijutransmissions@gmail.com. If you email us stuff, we actually do typically respond to that. So those are probably the three main ways. We do have an Instagram page. I don't know how often we use that now.
I mean, usually anything that goes on our Facebook is any pictures are usually on Instagram.
Yeah. We have a Tumblr page that hosts a lot. Like we post our episodes to that as well, so we can kind of share links and stuff.
Sweet. Well, guys, thank you for the honor of appearing tonight. It was an honor talking with you. And
we'll have to do this again.
No, absolutely. We should have done this a long time ago. We should have done this a long time ago.
Thanks for having us on.
if you guys are ever feeling particularly adventurous, maybe you can come into an After Dark and really see the craziness that can ensue there.
Only if it's Greasy Strangler and we're doing a live commentary. That is
You know
my
what? Bring me on for a Kaiju Transmissions of the Greasy Strangler, okay? I will do it. I will research it. I got the script hand on my wall. I'll do it. Or how about the Oily Maniac, the Shaw Brothers?
That's
movie?
a good one. Yeah, that's a really good one.
Well, guys, again, thank you again so much. Everybody in the chat, thank you for coming in tonight. But please go check these guys out. They're doing amazing work over there. The work that they also do with Kaiju Masterclass is impeccable. And they also happen to be two very cool MFers. So, again, thanks all for coming. Matt and Byrd, you guys are great. Thanks for coming. And for Godzilla's sake, everyone, keep watching Tokusatsu. For the good of mankind and yourselves, keep collecting responsibly. We'll catch you later. Adi to the os. Bye. Say bye, Byrd.
Oh, bye. I waved, but I don't know. Yeah.
I'm so